Uncertainty around trade and the economy has been causing a shift in global tourism, but are the airlines and aircraft makers positioned to navigate this turbulence? Joining us now to discuss, David Mao, VP Director and Portfolio Manager with TD Asset Management. David, always great to have you on the program. Welcome back.
Thanks, Greg. Nice to see you.
So here we are, almost at the end of April. What a different story for the tourism and travel industry. Going into this year, I think they thought things were going to be pretty good. Things have changed. Well, what is going on out there?
Yeah, I mean, look, it all comes down to how the Trump administration has been treating, the foreign countries, basically. When you talk about the actual tourism part into America, tourism by international tourists have dropped off significantly in the last few months. I mean, the last number that I saw was some numbers for March showing that the number of non-U.S. citizens or residents that are entering America for tourism purposes had fallen by about 10% in March alone. And it looked like most of that drop was coming from European tourists as well as Canadian tourists. And I think, obviously we've seen some headlines here in Canada about Canadians who, visit the U.S. regularly or even live in the U.S. for part of the year. They've changed their minds about that now. They no longer want to be supporting a U.S. economy or a country that is been acting so antagonistically towards Canada with the tariffs. And I think the other thing is we've also seen some headlines in the news about people, kind of having some trouble when they actually get to the border with, border agents either turning them away or not really kind of believing, the reason why they want to enter the U.S. And in fact, some people have been detained and eventually deported. So I think, people see those headlines and
even though the chances of that happening to you are probably small, the headline itself might
the headline itself is big. It has a big impact, and people will see that and say, well, you know what? Maybe I'll just save myself the hassle and not travel to the U.S. I don't want to spend my money there. And why should they benefit from, my hard-earned vacation dollars? I can go somewhere else.
So we understand the impetus behind people not wanting to travel into the States. You think about domestically, perhaps, then. Travel will hold up. American Airlines, I think, was just the latest one out to say, we can't forecast what the rest of the year looks like because even domestic travel, in the face of economic uncertainty, if you don't have to take that flight, if your company doesn't have to pay to send you to that place, maybe they don't in this environment.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. And, you mentioned American Airlines. I think it was out this morning, basically withdrawing their guidance for 2025, saying that we can't give you an accurate prediction of what this year is going to look like. But I mean, last week we had, I think it was Delta, Southwest, Frontier Airlines all say the same thing. They all said, here are our first quarter results. They're actually pretty good. They're fairly decent, but we're not going to tell you about the remaining 3 quarters of the year because we just don't know what's going to happen. Now, United did something a little bit different. When they released their first quarter results, they said, look, we also don't really know what's going to happen. So instead of giving no guidance, they gave 2 sets of guidance. They said, well, here's one set of guidance for if the economy goes into recession. We think things, at least on the earnings front, will be down 30 to 40%. That's scenario 1. And scenario 2 is if we don't go into recession, then we'll stick with our original plan. That was kind of earnings up 10 to 15%. So, but I think this kind of exemplifies just how much uncertainty there is out there because, I mean, these are airlines companies that should know their operating environment. And right now they're saying, we have no idea. We don't know what's going to happen. I think that's very disconcerting for investors and for the market as well.
Is that, in a strange way, the upside potential? Because when I take a look at Delta or American Airlines, all of their shares have come off quite a bit since February. If indeed you can go with the better scenario, could there be some upside later this year?
There could be, but I think as far as what we've seen so far this year, all of the American airlines, so the Deltas, Uniteds, Americans, they've all seen a decline in their domestic U.S. travel, especially in the economy cabin. And I think that speaks to the kind of stress that the average U.S. consumer is facing right now. And air travel being a very, very discretionary item in somebody's household budget, that's the first thing that gets cut. Now there is a couple of bright spots. We know that after the first quarter results, international travel from the U.S. to foreign countries is still relatively strong. And people who can afford to pay for premium economy or business class, that segment of the market is still relatively robust, I would say. So it's not all bad news, but I think for the mass market traveler, that really big part of the traveling segment of Americans, things are not looking great.
So those are the airlines. What about the plane makers, a name like Boeing? I mean, Boeing is trying to right the ship and move along a more positive path, and now they're dealing with all these issues as well.
Yeah, and so the good thing for Boeing and I guess its competitor Airbus is that there is a huge backlog of orders for their planes. Now, we did see last week the Chinese government instruct basically domestic Chinese airlines to not accept any more deliveries from Boeing. And obviously this is in retaliation to the 145% tariffs that Trump has decided that is the right amount for China. So the Chinese government has told their airlines to don't take any more Boeing planes, even ones that you've ordered years and years ago that are coming up for delivery now. So at a headline level, again, that looks very bad for Boeing because Chinese airlines in general are about roughly 20% of Boeing's business, Boeing's sales. So, it sounds bad, like 20% of your business is going to go away. But in reality, when you look a little bit deeper, Boeing has about, I think, a 10 or 11-year backlog of orders. So any planes that the Chinese airlines reject right now or they don't take right now because of this, I guess, trade spat that's going on, can easily be absorbed by other airlines from other countries. So, for example, Air India has already come up and said to Boeing, hey, for any planes that you were going to deliver to the Chinese, if they don't want them, we'll take them. And then some of the other Southeast Asian countries, of Malaysia in particular, has also voiced interest in saying, hey, any extra planes that you guys have and that were scheduled for delivery and are no longer scheduled, we can take them as well. So it's not as big of a deal as it sounds. So even if, say, 20% of Boeing's customers, which is China, disappeared overnight, they've got an 11-year backlog. That brings their backlog down to 8 to 9 years, right? So it has no real immediate impact to Boeing. And on the flip side of that, if you think about, well, can Airbus benefit from Boeing's customers leaving them? Not really, because Airbus itself also has a 10-year backlog. So if the Chinese airlines were to say, okay, I'm not going to buy Boeing anymore and I'll switch to Airbus, well,
they're get in line, right?
They're going to get in line at the end of that queue, and they'll be 10 years away from receiving an Airbus plane. So I would say this move by China is largely symbolic. It doesn't really affect anything other than maybe hurt the Chinese domestic airlines themselves.